Right. Hello, guys. I am here. Hopefully that has all worked. Hopefully that has all worked and it's gone live for me. Let's have a look and see if it is doing so. Let's have a look and see. Let me just see if I'm looking at the. It says I'm live, but it doesn't actually have anything going on. Hold on. Oh, it's working now. Perfect, perfect, perfect. It's working. Um, right, so hello everyone. This is going to be my 1000 subscriber special video where I rank every single circuit in Formula One history. Nagrom says hi, Nedzo. Hello, my friend. I'm gonna wait for people to get in and start chatting in the chat before I start actually ranking the circuits. But before we do that, I'm going to run us through the. I'm going to run us through the ranking, like the actual tiers. So we've got. So I've actually nicked this tier list from Southpaw Racer. He's a more of a sim racing YouTuber, but he made this tier list to have every single circuit in F1 history, including every single layout, including every single everything. So it's perfect for this, for my kind of channel. So I've nicked it off of him, so I'll give him credit for that. What else have I done? And I've edited some of the names of the tiers to make it more um good for my channel. So we've got S, which is GOAT tier. We've got A tier, which is great circuits. We've got B tier, which is pretty good circuits. C tier, which is okay, I guess. D, which is Damon Hill tier, so average and mid and awful. And then F is awful tier. So, um, yeah, I'm not sure how many people are watching. Put some support in the chat for my 1000 subscriber special. And I mean, I am being a massive beg. This is like I'm on Twitch. But yeah, we're gonna move in towards, because I can see we've got 3 viewers now. We're gonna move into the start of the tier list. So, um, first circuit on the list is actually a good one. It's Adelaide. There was only one layout they used from 85 until 95, and it was a really, really good one. I mean, a classic, had some classic moments. I mean, pretty much every single race there had a memorable moment. Obviously, 85 was Rosberg's win. Um, can't think of anything happened in 86. 87 was when Mansell had his tyre blowout and PK could have won the title, but he also came into the tyres. Sorry, he also came into the pits. Um, then we had 1991, which was the super wet race at Adelaide. Then 92 was when Mansell and Senna came together. 93, that might have actually been when Mansell. No, it wouldn't have been because Mansell wasn't even racing in 92. 94 was the infamous title battle between Hill and Schumacher. And 95 saw Hill win by 2 laps over Olivier Panis because everyone else just blew up due to mechanical issues. It's a great circuit. I wouldn't put it in the GOAT tier because I think a lot of people from a certain age overhype it a lot and act like it was the second coming of Christ of circuits, but it wasn't. I'll put it in great circuits for now, and then we'll move on to the next one. Let me just look at the chat. Uh, Imagine if you have another fire alarm. Oh yeah, because I was in a Discord call with some people yesterday, and my uni had 2 fire alarms in a row. We had 2 fire alarms in a row because someone doesn't know how to turn their boiler off, or something stupid like that. Now Grom says, "I was your 1000 subscriber. Thanks for that. Hello, Nedzo. Hello. Um, Ein Diab is the next circuit on this list. Let me just check all the audio is working. Oh my god, the audio is not great audio. I won't lie. I've just heard it. It's not great audio, but it's better than now. Ein Diab hosted the Moroccan Grand Prix in '58. Literally, that's the only race it hosted. I don't remember anything about the race other than that's where Stuart Lewis Evans died. Um, which obviously that's not a great thing. It's also obviously because it's the Moroccan Grand Prix. It's the only time a Moroccan driver has ever raced in Formula One. Uh, Robert Lacaz. Robert Lacaz raced here from he raced here in 1958, and that definitely would have accounted for something. But it's D tier. It's not a terrible circuit because like it's it's not like it's inherently bad. It's just inherently mediocre. That's what the problem is with Iron Diab. Aintree, and he said Aintree. It's an old horse racing circuit. It actually hosts horse racing events there nowadays, and I think it always has. But from 1955, in 1957, in 1959, I think in 61 and 62 as well, hosted the hosted the British Grand Prix instead of Silverstone, and then it switched over after 62. It switched to Brands Hatch in all the even numbered years until 1986. Obviously, Aintree was where Sterling Moss won his first race in 55, but apart from that, I can't really think of what happened there. The track layout actually looks decent for a track of that time because most of the tracks at that time um, were basically just loads of streets, usually European cities like Rennes and Rouen. But Aintree, okay, I guess it's not terrible. It's okay, I guess I'd say. Albert Park, the 1996 to 2019 layout. So obviously, in 1996 they moved from Adelaide, which we've already done, to Albert Park. Um, because of a political decision by the Victoria government to try and get the Australian Grand Prix to come to Albert Park, and they this layout was from 1996 until 2019. Um, and yeah, I mean, it saw some legendary moments. Obviously, the first race here in '96 saw Jacques Villeneuve get pole position on debut, and then lead most of the race until he had an oil issue, or like he was losing oil pressure, and had to drop back and let Damon Hill through. 1997 saw Villeneuve again prove he was really good because he outqualified Frentzen by 1.7 seconds, his teammate, and then he made, I think it was two drivers. He made two drivers not qualify on pure pace, but then they let them in because they were so far because Villeneuve was so far clear of everyone else. I'm trying to think of a legendary moment. 1999 was when Hakkinen, on a safety car restart, he had an engine failure, and so Irvine had to awkwardly go through just after the start finish line. 2002 saw Schumacher, that's Ralph Schumacher, and Barrichello come together. 2002 also saw Mark Webber get his first points from Minardi, and the first points from Minardi in I think 3 years or something like that. I'm trying to think of other famous moments around Australia. I mean, 2007, Lewis Hamilton's debut is easily a good thing. As Jale says, yo, and Sam Palmer says, Aintree's a definition of mid. I agree. But yeah, we've had legendary moments at Albert Park. 2008 was where I'm trying to think what happened in 2008. That was where I remember watching that to go on Peter Brook's podcast, but I don't remember much about it. Button won in 2009 with Brawn. 2010 was a chaotic race, which saw Jenson Button win again. He won his first race with McLaren, and his last race. No, he didn't. He won his last. He won his last race. He took his last race win with McLaren in 2012 at Brazil. Raikkonen won his last race for about 5 years in 2013 here. Rosberg won in 2014. There's nothing really special about that race apart from Ricciardo getting disqualified for a fuel flow issue when he could have been the first Australian to get a home podium. Um, 2016 was when they had elimination qualifying, which was awful. Remy says, when Bro said he would rate every track, he meant every track. Of course I meant every single track. I'm not going to swindle you out of a proper video. 2016 was elimination qualifying. 2017 was Vettel Hamilton virtual safety car thing when Vettel overtook Hamilton under VSC, and it was a clever strategy call. Ferrari pulling out a clever strategy call. You'd never think of that now. 2018, can't remember anything. 2019, which was the last year that they did this layout. I think Bottas won, and people thought, oh, he's going to challenge for the title against Lewis, and we all saw how that worked out because he was like 5 million points away at the end of the season. But yeah, Albert Park, I'm waffling at this point, but it's a pretty good circuit considering it was a political decision. Um, yeah, the difference between I saw someone say in the chat the difference between the 2022 to present layout and the 2019 layout to 1996 layout is that they've first of all they widened a couple of corners. They widened, I think, turn three, and or no, they brought the wall closer on the entry to turn three. They made, I think, the apex to turn one a bit wider. They took obviously, so you got turn four, turn five. Turn five is the fast right hander coming out of turn four, and then coming into old turn six, you used to take a sharp right hander down a little curve straight into another sharp right hander. Now the sharp right hander is just a fast right hander, and there's no sharp right hander in the middle. Like if I'm not sure how great the camera quality is, but you can see there with where I'm pointing with my cursor is quite a pointy point. But here, if I put it in the same place, it's not a pointy point. It's a lot smoother. Um, Bartas won and dedicated his win to his porridge breakfast. Yeah, to whom it may concern, fuck you is what he said. That's how I start pretty much every email I ever send to whom it may concern. Um, a good strategy call would be the pit wall calling up US Central Command and conducting airstrikes on the leading car. FIA literally has no rules against this. I think international law probably has rules against that though, which is a problem. Bottas won in Australia and decided to become an Aussie himself after leaving Merck. Oh yeah, because he started wearing a mullet and stuff and looked like a proper gimp. But yeah, I think the newer layout is actually worse. I don't like the newer layout because it does produce more overtaking, but it produces overtaking that's too easy. It has 4 DRS zones, and I'd much rather a race where we have a couple of really good overtakes that are on pure merit than have loads of DRS passes. Anyway, so I'll put it slightly below the the old layout. So what I want to do is if we have two tracks in the same tier, the one that's further to the left is the better one. The one that's further to the right is the worst one. So that's why that one's there. Next one is the 73 layout of Anderstorp. I drove Anderstorp in F1 VB Challenge about a month ago, so I know how the track goes. This long back straight here is actually an airport runway or an airport land strip. It's a runway in an airport, or it was at least. I'm not sure if it still is now. And Anderstorp was really nice to drive, actually. It was a bit bland, a bit boring because it's featureless and it's just a flat airport circuit. But for a flat airport circuit, it's good. Good morning / afternoon, Nedster. Don't call me Nedster. How could people call me Neddy? People call me Nedzo. People call me Nedzos. I don't know how people have got that from my name, but don't call me Nedster. You might get sent to the Hague for war crimes, but at least you would win a Grand Prix. Anderstorp, he's actually a good. I think okay, I guess is probably where I put Anderstorp because the only iconic moment at the circuit was in 1978 with the Brabham fan car, and that's not this layout of the circuit. 1974 to 77, they put a hideous chicane in there. Look at that; it's like an Abu Dhabi chicane. Not a chance is that going anywhere near. That is probably going in Damon Hill tier. And the 1978 layout, they got rid of the chicane, but they sharpened up that corner, which I don't like. Although it had the more iconic moment, I don't like the chicane, so it's going to go above the horrible chicane, but it's going to go below the original layout. Right, next one. Ned Stramus. No, I'm not Ned Stramus. I assume that's a Dutch or a German name. I'm not really too clued up on Central European language origins, unfortunately. And then we've got Avis is next. We've got 8 viewers. Fucking hell. The Hague war crime was me commenting on my junior strategy call. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, yeah. Avis is next. I've driven Avis because I've got a bit of a interest in pre-war racing over the past few weeks. I was driving on a Assetto Corsa and some old Delages and also Unions. and Bugattis, and then my wheel decided to brick itself, so I've had to contact Fanatec support. But I drove Avis. I drove this layout of Avis when I was doing those races, so I know how Avis goes. It's still a challenge because people look at it and go, "Oh, it was just two hairpins, and one of them had a massive banking, and it was really scary, and it was like a wall of death because you had no barrier at the top," which is true. But it's still a very tricky circuit. Just because it's two corners doesn't mean it's not tricky. Just ask any oval racer. Um, I mean, it only hosted one race in its tenure, and that race was actually the only F1 race ever held over two heats. Tony Brooks won it, and it was the only race ever held by over two heats. I'm not sure why they did that, but they did do it. Jean Berra died in the sports car race before the F1 event, which was unfortunate, but I'd say it's a pretty good circuit. Um, Nordstrom and Nanto. I know. See, the thing is, I'm autistic, so any sort of joke that you say that's got any sort of like not what's it called nuance to it, I just either don't get it or I don't find it funny. You do a lot to make me laugh, but the people who Nagrom, Stealth, and Sam, who are in the chat from my Discord, will know that how hard it is to make me laugh because I just don't laugh because I'm autistic and I don't find many jokes funny. Um, Next one up is Bahrain. See, Bahrain, for a Middle Eastern circuit that's supposedly just in a desert, is not that bad. As much as I want to hate all the Middle Eastern circuits, I can't really hate Bahrain. I'll probably put it, the 2004 layout, the only difference between 2004 and 2005 to present layout is they widened turn 4. Like, they made it wider on the exit, I think it was. No, they what they did was they just made the whole corner wider and they had a bit of runoff. F1 fan, not so famous. I'd have to see that to believe that. Yeah, but yeah, brain bar. I saw the brain fart comment. And he said brain bar. Bahrain. I'm gonna put it in B tier with Albert Park and stuff. And I'm gonna put the new layout better because I've not driven the 2004 layout. Um, 2010, what the right? Yeah, awful. Like I've driven this layout in F1 2010. It doesn't help that F1 2010 has auto spin curves where you go anywhere near them and you get spat out into the outer stratosphere. But it's just terrible. They did it for like the 60th anniversary of F1, and they were going to like endurance layout. It's shit. It's just awful. Um, yeah, Adelaide had a track too. Adelaide had a track too. Lol. Yes, I put Adelaide in A tier. Um, Next one is Bahrain Outer. See, Bahrain Outer hosted one race and it was good, but this track would never work long term. It'd be the reason why a lot of the tracks worked in 2020 and produced a goodish season considering Lewis dominated was because they were tracks that F1 had never gone to before, so they had no data. This is what I've always said. If you want to make F1 good again and make it interesting, you restrict the amount of data that teams can use, and you make the cars not on rails. You make unpredictability produces great sporting achievements. And it seems like F1 don't know that. Like, oh, we'll reduce the cars by half a meter and 50 kilograms, and and the teams can have less cost. No, just unpredictability. Far better. Yeah, but anyway, Bahrain Alta, good circuit on a one-turn basis, but as soon as they got any sort of data, they'd be able to just work it out, and it'd be a boring race. Because although it's like 95% straights, it's thingy. Oh my god, we could just Mr. Stealth just subscribed to become a channel member. Unfortunately, Stealth, I moved all my channel membership programs over to Patreon, so you won't actually get any sort of like perks for that. I all do it all on Patreon. But yeah, we're gonna go for Bahrain outer layout. It's pretty good, and it's probably better than still Albert Park. No, actually, I put it above Avis, but not above Albert Park. Um, as what's it called? Stuff says Ollie Goatman. I don't know why you'd say that. It's a bit random. We're not talking about Ollie Bone. We're talking about F1 tracks. Um, we're now going to Baku. Well, we're not going to Baku. We are rating Baku. It's had, I mean, pretty much every single race has been good since it's come on the calendar. 2016 was a bit air. 2017 was better. 2018 was better as well. 2018, 19, 28, 17, 18, 19 was what happened in but 19 was where Bottas had his puncture, wasn't it? That's when he had a puncture with like 2 laps to go. I mean, gave Hamilton the win. 2021 was interesting because it was where Hamilton really lost the title. 2022, I don't remember what happened in 2022. What the that was when Perez won. Yeah, that was when Perez won. 2023. Uh, yeah, it either hosts a dull, boring race or it hosts an amazing race. It's pretty good. I'd put it above Albert Park. Above, actually, no, I might even put it in great circuits above with Adelaide, but not above Adelaide. Um, as now we're going to move on to Brands Hatch. You see, I only know the modern layout of Brands Hatch. Obviously, this layout says 1976 to 86, but that's only because that's when it hosted F1. It's still the same layout that it was in 86 today, I think. Um, and obviously, it was on the F1 2013 game. But yeah, the amount of times on F1 2013 I tried to get sub 1 minute lap times when I was like 10 and I had all the assists on. But now I can do like 58s pretty easily. Around Brands Hatch in the 2013 Ferrari on an F1 game. But I do like Brands Hatch. I think it's a really good circuit. Obviously, it had to compete with Silverstone, and in modern era F1, it would never work. But yeah, sorry, not Baku. Brands Hatch would never work in modern F1 because of how short it is and because there's no long straights and it's all fast corners. There's only one really slow corner, so you wouldn't be able to make an overtake. Great circuit for back in the day, but not a great circuit for nowadays. Oh, it's starting to lag my screen. Fun. And the original layout looks worse because the pit lane is, or the track is so close to where the modern day pit lane is. Um, Now Bremgarten, obviously Bremgarten was one of the it was a circuit that was on the first F1 calendar in 1950. And it's probably the most forgotten one because obviously on the 1950 calendar you had Silverstone, Monaco, Spa, Rem, Monza, Indy 500, and Bremgarten. Like all of the other circuits on that calendar have some sort of iconic status. Maybe apart from Rem, you could say, because not many people know about it now because it's been not demolished, but I think it is literally just roads nowadays, and I don't think it hosts any racing. Is it Rem or Rouen that has that kind of like preservation group that tries to keep the history there? They have the pit lane still there and stuff. I think that's Rouen. I don't think it's Rem. I've been watching what's it called, a Circuits of the Past video on that, and that's what they said. Um, but Bremgarten, it was an okay circuit, I guess. Classic 50s circuit where it's super high speed. Um, I've not driven it actually. I drove I think like a 1930s version in a Talbot about yeah, a couple of days ago, but I haven't driven the full circuit. I don't think. Buenos Aires, the 1953 to 1960 layout. You see, this track map doesn't indicate the fact that I think it was in 1954 or 1955. They ran the circuit backwards. They ran the circuit backwards for some reason. It's the only circuit I think to have run the exact same layout in reverse. Um, but yeah, Buenos Aires. This is I don't know which circuit this is. This is obviously nowhere near the same as the modern layout of Buenos Aires, so I'll put it in okay, I guess, because I don't really know where it is. It's above Bremgarten. The 1972 to 73 layout again will be the same. It's a bit better because I can see it's got a bit more character to it. It's got a few more S's and stuff. Um, Next up is the. Hold on, I'm just gonna check that I'm fully up to date. There we go. Because I'm watching just to check that all the camera and stuff is working. Then 74 to 81. Obviously now that was when they started going around the lake and they had the fuck off massive right hander. I assume they stopped doing that after 81 because of safety. I mean, obviously they took the Argentine Grand Prix off the calendar after 81 because Reutemann retired in 82, and I don't think there'd have been any point um, in doing so. So yeah, Buenos Aires. I like this layout. I think it's actually really good, pretty good, I'd say. Probably better than Albert Park, but below Bahrain. Then Buenos Aires, 95 to 98. I did a video on Esteban Tuero, who was the last Argentine driver to drive in his home Grand Prix. And I did that as part of that when I was in my doing a bit of sim racing as well as the videos era. Um, I I drove Esteban Tuero's Minardi around here, and it's such a shit circuit because as soon as you think, oh my god, there's a straight here, it just goes corner, 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 corner. You have no chance to actually get any speed up. It's like a kart circuit. Like the main straight, you get up to just about sixth gear because they only had six gears back in the 90s, and then coming into this corner, it's better to stay in fifth gear because you're going pretty much flat out through the corner and you drop the revs otherwise. So you're only in top gear for like 2 seconds of the entire lap. It is like Monaco except without the walls. So I really don't like the modern or the most modern Buenos Aires layout. Um, let's put this in. Okay, I guess. No, actually, in Damon Hill tier. I'll put it below Iron Diab and below all the others. The 2023 Williams car would be dead last on that circuit then. Yeah, it is just awful. Caesar's Palace, I mean, Caesar's Palace is an awful tier. There's no doubt about it, and it is worse than the Bahrain endurance layout, but it's not the worst circuit in F1 history. We'll get to the worst circuit in F1 history soon. Catalonia. Catalonia, when it first came onto the calendar, obviously there's a lot of differences to the modern layout. First of all, obviously what we now know as the back straight, going into turn 10, they didn't have the back straight. It was in fact the Nissan chicane. Um, and then obviously they had the old second to last corner where it was the same as what it is today, if not a little bit tighter, I think. I like this layout. It's not too bad to drive, but it's not the greatest to race on. Obviously, did it from 91 to 93. The only iconic moment really was Mansell and Senna. Sorry, I don't know what's happening to me. Mansell and Senna going side by side into turn one at Catalonia was what everyone remembers from that era of that circuit. Uh, I'll put it in okay, I guess, ahead of Buenos Aires. 1994 Catalonia is going in awful tier. And you're probably like, why? I can't see much of a difference between that layout and that layout. Well, I can because if you'd have watched my 1994 video, you'll know that where the Nissan chicane is here, there is a tyre chicane, like an actual, like, you know how you see, I think Avis had it, where no, Avis had proper curbs, but there was so many, so where literally it's a temporary chicane, and they had tyre barriers jutting in from either side of a circuit, and it was like a second gear awful chicane. But the problem is with tyre barriers is tyres aren't solid. So if because all the drivers are trying to get as close to the barriers as they went round to get the most time or get the fastest time. So that one of them would occasionally clip the barrier and a tyre would fall onto the circuit, onto the racing line. So we'd have to red flag the practice session while they put the tyre back in place. It was a stupid idea. Um, and yeah, it's a really bad circuit. I'd even say it's worse than Caesar's Palace just for that awful corner. Catalunya is definitely a C tier track. Suits MotoGP more. That's fair. I mean, I don't watch MotoGP. It's the one motor racing series that I do want to get into, but I think I'd be too confused by it. Um, are we going with theoretical quality or practical actual events of racers, quality of a track? A mix of both, I'd say. Like what I think of in my head is a mix of longevity and history, actual racing product, and theoretical racing product. So if there was any like, and also how it is to drive. Obviously, I don't have first-hand experience how F1 cars drive because I'm just a university student. But I drive sim racing, and I know how certain circuits and certain cars handle. That's a very good question, Remy. Then we go on to the 95 to 2003 layout, which is, I think this is where they get rid of the Nissan chicane. They turn the back straight into the back straight, and I think that's the only difference between the original layout and the new layout, or and this layout. I'm trying to think of iconic moments. Obviously, Schumacher winning in the wet here in '96 is the biggest moment. Hakkinen losing his last win in Spain, and then he won it in India anyway that same year. He lost it on the last lap. He had some sort of, I think he either A ran out of fuel or B had a gearbox problem. I think happened. Which I got other moments from that. I don't really remember any of the other things. Catalonia. I'm gonna put it in. It's better than this layout. I like the original layout for the flow of the chicane because this actual backstraight chicane isn't that bad. At least not with the tyre barriers, but it is just a C tier track. I can't put it on the same level as Avis because Avis is just so unique. Then 2004 to 2006, that's when they make the turn 10 hairpin much tighter. To what to and I never liked that bit because it completely ruined the flow. And on the F1 2020 game, not the hairpin, but this corner after this little left-hander going into the right-hander. Obviously that's backwards for you, so I'd have to probably go left-hander into the right-hander. Um, that corner, the actual left-hander, if you got on the curb, it would send you into Narnia. I mean, that's obviously not the circuit's fault. That's the F1 game's fault for not simulating curbs properly. But it wasn't as good as the 95 to 03 layout. And then you have the 2007 to 2020 layout, which had what I call the Villeneuve chicane, because most people don't know that Jacques Villeneuve was the one that said they should introduce a chicane at the second to last corner at Catalonia because the drivers were going too fast. Because he's a fat gimp and he deserves to die. But that's the only difference this layout has. It's definitely worse. Where I'd put it in the worst category, I'd actually put it in D tier probably because it also produced lots of bad races or boring races. Probably put it on the same level as Ein Diab or a similar level to Ein Diab. 2021 to 2022. What happened there? That was when they moved back to the old turn 10, which is I suppose a goodish movement, but they still have a chicane. So I'll put that just above the 2007. I'm just going to take my glasses off and clean them. Second, starting to smudge up. You can tell this is a really professional stream because I'm cleaning my glasses. Have I been? Have I had my face slightly off the screen this entire time? If I go like that, is it a bit easy? Is it gonna show my face not off the screen the entire time? 2023 was when they brought in the old layout again, and that is, I think actually it's the same as the 1995 to 2003 layout. So I will put that on the same level. Next up is Charade. Now, I like Charade is a very underrated circuit because it's like the mini Nürburgring Nordschleife. I think it's like 8 kilometers long or 8 miles long, and the longest straight on it is 800 meters or 600 meters or something like that. That's how many corners there are. It's a really good circuit. I have driven it in F1 VB Challenge, and it's so flowing and it's so nice to drive. The face cam was either way. Now it might be better. Okay, thank you. But yeah, there's a lot of hairpin turns, but the hairpin turns aren't annoying hairpin turns because it actually has a flow to it and it's got undulation and it's got character and it's around a volcano and stuff. So Charade is definitely in GOAT tier for me, at least now. We might change that when we get to the later circuits. But Kota is next. I mean, it's had some good races. 2012 was actually a decent race, the first race it ever did. 2013, Grosjean could have won if Vettel wasn't in the best car of that year. 2014, I don't remember anything. 2015 was the race where Hamilton won his title. Was it, or was that Mexico? No, it was 2017 when he won it in Mexico. It was 2015 when he won it in Kota. Um, that was obviously in the wet when he forced Rosberg off the start, and Rosberg had a massive whinge and a whine. He's like, "Oh, I don't like it, but when I do something, it's horrible. When I do something, it's fine, but when someone else does something, it's horrible." Fuck off. I'm just trolling, really. Um, then what's it called? 2016. I don't remember anything. 2017. I don't remember anything. 2018 was Raikkonen's last win. 2019. I don't remember anything. 2020 didn't exist. 2021. I don't think it existed either. No, 2021. It had the Hamilton Verstappen battle. As Zach RC says, carried by thumbnails. Shush. You're not the one who writes the scripts and produces videos. And to be fair, Kota gets bonus points as the first American track that worked well and stayed. It wasn't really. I mean, you had Watkins Glen that stayed in the 60s through to the 80s, but it's the first modern circuit that stayed. I'd agree with that one. Indianapolis obviously stayed a bit, but then it got bogged down in controversy, which is annoying. Kota, I mean, it's pretty good. I'd put it on a similar level to Bahrain. It's actually quite underrated because although it nicks a lot of corners like Maggotts and Beckett's, and Bahrain turned 910 in here, and a couple of other corners, it's still good. Um, then we have Dallas. Right, yeah. Dallas, to drive on a simulator is good, but the simulator doesn't really pick up some of the details of the circuit because when they originally drove it in 1984, potholes and the track was basically melting because of how hot the circuit was at times. Obviously, I mean the pole lap there was from Nigel Mansell and it was like a 1 minute 40. But when I went in to the sim rate, when I went into the F1 VP Challenge, I set a 125 and I wasn't even pushing. So I know that it was just breaking up in real life and that's why it was so slow and you were just trying to get around the circuit. So it's awful. Like, um, it's worse than Catalonia awful. Um, then 1982 layout of Detroit. Now I actually like Detroit for its overall layout because it is, although it's a lot of 90-degree corners, and 90-degree corners are still challenging. It's like an American Baku in a way. But in the 1982 layout, see that little dimple there? That's a hairpin. That's a 30 mile an hour, the slowest corner in F1 history, hairpin. Like, it's slower than the Monaco hairpin because of how tight it is. I was struggling to get around there in 82 cars, in 1982 cars. Um, Nedzo beat Mansell in equal machinery. The new go. You never know. But yeah, 1982 layout. Yeah, I don't like it. It's got a hairpin that's ugly and awful. It's not as bad as Dallas, I don't think, but it's still awful. Actually, no, I think it is worse than Dallas. Oh, where have I just put it? Nope, not there. Then the actual proper layout of Detroit without the hairpin. I've not driven it, but from what I've seen, it's interesting. Senna got pole position about 5,000 times there, because he was always good around tight street circuits. Um, but I do like this layout. I'll probably put it in C tier around about where Catalonia is because I do like my street circuits. Dijon Prenois, the 1974 layout, obviously is very primitive. I think there was setting 1 minute 2 lap times in qualifying there in the 1970s, which just shows you how short and how fast the circuit was. And I don't remember anything from a 1974 race, so I'll put it up with Iron Diab. Then the actual proper layout of Dijon that everyone remembers from F1, where Villeneuve and Arnoux had their battle, where Jabouille took the first all-French win in F1 history, French car, French driver, French team, French tyres, French engine, French everything at the French Grand Prix in Dijon. That was pretty much the best way you could ever do any sort of race win. Um, I did like it. It's a good circuit. Okay, I guess is probably where it belongs. Probably behind Detroit, ahead of Buenos Aires. Then Donington. Obviously, the one race it hosted was legendary. I'm just going to quickly look at because my mate has sent me a direct message. I just want to check that it's not something stupid. Oh, he sent me his Duolingo. Um, that's so yeah. Anyway, sorry, Donington. Um, the one race it hosted was legendary, but Um, overall, I'd say it would never. Like, especially not, it wouldn't work for modern days F1 because modern days F1, your circuit has to have 8,000 long straights, four DRS zones, and tight corners to actually make it work. Obviously, they have a hairpin or two, um, but I don't think it'd work for modern day F1. I do like the circuit. I like Donington. It's one of the British circuits I think will be more suited to Formula One, but it's still not suited. It was pretty good in its time. I'll probably put it up at the top of B tier. Then East London. East London is not the East London as in the United Kingdom, East London. This is in South Africa. Um, Prince. It's also known as the Prince George Circuit. Um, I don't know who the prince. I don't know who Prince George. Obviously, I know Prince George is a person in the royal family nowadays, but I think he's like two. He's like 10 years old, so he wouldn't have been alive when this circuit was around in the 1960s. Don't know which Prince George they're on about. Some history nerd will be able to tell me about that in the comments. Um, but it is. It went clockwise. The first corner was this fast right-hander, but overall, I mean, Jim Clark won here a couple of times, but overall it just looks a bit I won't lie. Looks very mediocre. I think Damon Hiltier could be perfect for this. Maybe behind Iron Diab, but ahead of Buenos Aires. Next up is the original layout of Estoril. Let me have a look. The host country also needs a questionable. The host country also needs a questionable to bad human rights record to host a track in modern Formula One. Yeah, I mean, yes, that's completely true. Um, yeah, we did a sports washing because I do a sports journalism course, and on the journalism course we have to talk about sports culture, and part of the sports culture module is to talk about sports washing, and my uni lecturer is a massive football fan, and he hates F1 because apparently F1 is too predictable, and you know who's going to win before the race starts. Um, and he basically just bashes F1 at every point he gets, and says that F1 is basically the worst sport for um sports washing and for accepting money from like despotic regimes. But the reason why he's wrong is because, well, first of all, F1 isn't a sport. Motorsports is a sport. It's like saying the Premier League is a sport. It's not. It's not the sports league that's a sport. It's the sport itself that's a sport. And secondly, the thing is, he said, for example, that you know who's going to win F1, and it's too predictable. But I actually worked this out. There have been more drivers' championship and constructors' championship winners in F1 in the last 20 years than there have been Premier League winners. I think like five teams have won the Premier League, whereas six different teams have won either the Drivers' or the Constructors' Championship. So he can swivel on that one. He's just wrong. He clearly just hates F1 and wants to believe what he wants to believe and doesn't have any knowledge of the sport, so he tries to hate on it, which is the backwards thing to do. You get knowledge and then you hate on it. But anyway, Estoril is next. Estoril is a great circuit. I've driven it in F1 2013. So nice to drive. That automatically puts it in A tier. Wimbledon is my favourite sport, to be honest. Yeah, exactly. Estoril probably goes above Adelaide for me, just on pure driving factor. It is one of the best circuits I've ever driven in a period car, in like a car of the time. However, the other layout of Estoril, um, it's ruined. What they did in 1994, this section, this chicane section, it goes downhill, then in the middle of a corner goes very uphill, and then in the next bit of a corner levels out. So it's awful. It has too much elevation change. No kind of, and it dips and it bumps and it weaves, but it's got all of the elevation change of a normal F1 circuit in two corners. It's awful, this chicane, which is why I'm going to put it in F tier. The rest of the circuit is amazing, so I'll put it at the top of F tier. But that one bit ruins it for me. Next up is Fuji. Obviously, this isn't the original layout of Fuji because the original layout of Fuji had a massive banked turn that went right out here and then came back. but they got rid of that because of lack of safety because it was too bumpy. And then they came back right, and yeah, this whole it obviously hosted the 1976 season finale, which is a legendary finale, and it's amazing. But I think the reason why that was so legendary was because one, it was in the wet, and two, because of the actual words English, the actual prestige of the finale. Like if we'd have hosted it at Brands Hatch or whatever other circuit was on the 1976 calendar, like Kyalami or Monaco or Monza, it would have still been the same kind of finale and prestige. Um, so I will put it in okay, I guess, because although it was a good circuit, it wasn't fantastic. Probably nice to drive in those period cars, but other than that, not really. The modern out of Fuji, I mean, it produced two really good races in '07 and '08, especially '07 because it was in the wet again. Um, but not mind blowing. I can see why they didn't go there permanently after 2008 because it does just reek of one good race every now and again, and the rest is just a bit average. And plus, I hate the last sector at Fuji. They turned it into a kart circuit when it's supposed to be called the Fuji Speedway, and it's turned into like lots of little jinky little tiny corners. Um, Anyway, the 1970 1981 layout of Hockenheim, obviously, the reason why they went to, I've got loads of them left. The reason why they went to Hockenheim in the early 70s through to the 80s for the German Grand Prix at times was because of the safety involved with the Nordschleife. They went there in 1970 because they boycotted the Nordschleife, and then I think from 77 onwards, obviously the year after Lauda's crash, they went there on principle because of safety. This is where they have the first chicane. They don't have the Clark chicane, and they don't. Is that a chicane? Let me just. I'm looking right into the camera. That's probably going to look really weird on camera, but they do have a chicane there. So this is a pretty good layout. Better than Avis, better than Bahrain Outer, but I don't. No, it's better than Albert Park, better than Buenos Aires, better than Bahrain, better than Kota, better than Donington, but it's not better than Baku, which is where I draw the line. The newer layouts of Hockenheim might be because they're more iconic. The 1982 layout of Hockenheim obviously saw Didier Peroni smash his legs to pieces. What else did it see? It saw Nelson Piquet smash Eliseo Salazar to pieces. Um, I'm trying to think of any other moments that happened at this layout. I'll probably put it in A tier because it does have more historic moments. Then the 1992 to 93 layout, I don't know what. I mean, must have tightened one of the chicanes. That'll be what happened. I don't remember any iconic moments in 92 or 93. Oh, no, I do. Damon Hill retiring from the lead in 93. I don't know how I pulled that out of my ass. Then the last layout, which was where they saw the not the Marshall, the protester run onto the track. Gerhard Berger won his last race ever here after his dad died, and he turned into an unstoppable monster and got a Grand Slam here, and then just faded off back into obscurity. This is a good track. Probably ahead of Baku, maybe ahead of the old layout of Brands Hatch. Actually, I'll probably bring these up as well. Then the modern Hockenheim, considering it's a redesign of an old circuit, is not bad. It's like on the same level as Spa, where the redesign is just as good as the old circuit in terms of the feeling and the because obviously you can't have the same sort of the reason why they do the redesigns is because of safety, and a lot of the prowess of a lot of the older circuits was the lack of safety. But this is still a good circuit. Produced good racing, especially in 2019. And although it's got some tight sections that are a bit meh, it's not too bad. The way that Herman Tilke did it wasn't too bad. It's not as good as old. It's not as good as old Hockenheim, but I'd still put modern Hockenheim above Kota, but not above Donington. Um, Next up is the 1986 to 88 layout of the Hungaroring. Obviously, it's a bit different to the modern layout. Turn one is a lot more open. They have the chicane going up through turn three because were initially gonna they were initially gonna put the corner going like where it goes in the modern day, but they saw a spring or some water fountain or like natural spring right where they were going to put the corner, so they had to put a temporary chicane in while they got rid of the spring. And the joke I made in my video about Damon Hill's Hungaroring escapades was that the spring that they diverted to get the circuit back on course came up 20 years later and hit Felipe Massa in the face. Vettel would put Hockenheim into F tier. He would. Although it was his home circuit, it cost him a championship, or sowed the seeds for his downfall of a championship. You can't see A tier. Oh, okay. That's a problem. Okay, there we go. Fixed it. But the original Hungaroring, it wasn't a great circuit. Damon Hill tier. I mean, it had one good moment, which was PK overtaking Senna around the outside in the first race. But apart from that, no. Um, but the later layouts, like for example, the 1989 to 2002 layout, I also want to be in the context and history. Hungaroring has a slight bonus point because it was in the Warsaw Pact during the Cold. Oh yeah, it was the first race. It was the first F1 race held behind the Iron Curtain. It was. Also, Nagram, I can't zoom out because on either side, at the top and at the bottom of the screen, there is ads, and I'm not giving more ad revenue to these people who like Fiverr and Adobe Creative Cloud and all these other things. Um, but Hungaroring, this is where Thierry Boutsen got one of his wins. Um, Obviously, I'm gonna just quickly pull it up there. Thierry Boutsen got one of his wins here. Um, Damon Hill became an actual good driver for a lot of races at the Hungaroring. Trying to think of other legendary moments that have happened. There's not really any legendary moments that have happened at the Hungaroring, apart from obviously the ones that Damon Hill and Carol had. But we'll put it into C tier, maybe even B tier. To be fair, is it better than the Catalonia circuit? No, I don't think it is actually. It's better than Fuji, but not as good as Detroit, in my opinion. Um, then the 2003 to present layout, what they did for this was they tightened turn one up to its modern thing, and they turned the corner going into the last sector into an overtaking zone. They were trying to turn it into an overtaking zone, but it didn't work because you can't turn it like a 7 meter straight into an overtaking zone. Um, and obviously, back in like 2011, they introduced DRS zones. They introduced the DRS zone down the main straight, and they introduced the DRS zone down to turn two, which is stupid because it's literally like a 200-meter straight. It's the shortest DRS zone ever. I think it still is there today, and hardly anyone notices it because of how short it is. But it is better than. Is it better than the 2000? Yeah, I think it is better than the 2003 layout because or the 2002 layout because it actually produces overtaking, at least some overtaking. Um, let's move on to Imola. For the modern iteration of the Hungaroring, just want to add most poles on one track for one driver, Lewis Hamilton, but won his first race and Button is real as shit, and I rest my case. Oh, but as in BUT Jensen Button won his first race. Yeah, yeah, Hungary 2006, and yeah, Button is real. Yeah, yeah, I get you. Next one up is, I mean, I don't have the best of opinions of Jensen Button. He's a good pundit, but when I went to Goodwood in 2013, I was in my wheelchair at the time because I was like 9 years old, so because I had cerebral palsy, I couldn't really walk much. Or at least not walk the legs. You have to go to walk at Goodwood, and so my dad was pushing me. My dad was pushing me as a 10-year old in a wheelchair, and we heard that at the top of this hill there'd be a lot of F1 drivers signing autographs, and so we'd be like, "Well, awesome, awesome, let's go and do that." And so my dad pushed me. I think it was like 3 miles up a hill, a steep hill, like a 10-20 degree incline, in what was at the time in England 30-degree weather, which is boiling hot in England. Pushed me 3 miles up a hill. I don't know how he did it. And we get to the top of the hill, and we get to the signing autographs pen. Jenson Button sees me, sees my wheelchair, sees my dad who's just sweated his arse out trying to get me up there, and signs the autograph of the guy on the left of me, signs the autograph of the guy on the right of me, and then doesn't sign anything from me. So that's why I'm not the biggest fan of Jenson Button. Because usually when F1 drivers see a disabled fan, they have a heart attack because they're like, "Oh, good PR if I sign this guy's autograph." But Jenson Button clearly didn't see that. But yeah. Anyway, moving on to Imola. Imola 1980. They had a couple of chicanes here. And I mean, nothing really happened in the 1980 race, so I'll put it in Damon Hill tier, um, along with probably East London and India. My condolences, and that's weird, and that's a weird and fucked up. It is a bit weird. Yeah, I won't lie. Not sure why he did it. I don't know why he did it. Did he? Maybe he just didn't realize. I don't know. But then, as soon as he went past me and the other guy, he literally went off into his helicopter and buggered off. Jensen has his priorities in check. Fuck off with you. See, this is why I left TIR because they say stuff like that. It's just odd generally to do that. It is. Um, yeah, because you'd assume, as I said, that F1 drivers would see a disabled fan and instantly think of it as a PR opportunity. Like, because, for example, there was another Sebastian Buemi, who obviously drove for Toro Rosso back in the day, saw me in my wheelchair. Just in general, it wasn't like we officially went to an autograph signing. He just saw us walking around and instantly went up to my dad and was like, "Oh, do you want me to get a picture with him?" And he was like, and my mother was like, "Oh yeah, 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 thank you." And he took a picture with me. And he was super cool and he was nice. But that's why I like Sebastian Buemi and that's why I like Formula E because Sebastian Buemi's in it and he won a championship there. But yeah, to think that Sebastian Buemi has more morals than Jenson Button or has more PR opportunities than Jenson Button, it's a bit of a strange one. Then the 1984 on to 1994 layout. Um, I mean, this is going to be controversial, but this layout of Imola is the best layout. I don't care that Senna and Ratzenberger died there. They didn't die because Imola was unsafe. They died because the cars were unsafe. This is what I will go. I will die on this hill. Um, what's it called? Senna died because he didn't have a halo and because they didn't have safety stuff and they didn't have a hands device and they didn't have everything else. And Ratzenberger died because he didn't have a hands device. If they went back to this layout of Imola nowadays, the races would be 10 times better because there'd be actual overtaking. And I don't care. Yes, drivers might crash more, but they won't die from a crash if they have, tyre barriers or something that isn't a concrete wall stopping them. This is an A tier layout, even though 2 drivers died here. I don't care. You can boo me all you want. I can hear the boos in the comments. Boo, boo. This guy stinks. But I don't care. I'm gonna die on that hill. Then the 1995 layout was when they introduced the chicanes and ruined it. It's a C tier track still, but they ruined it. It's worse than Hungaroring, better than Fuji. Actually, no, it's not better than Fuji. At least not better than the modern layout. Then the 2006 layout. Don't know what they changed, but it was obviously not good because I don't remember it. And then the 2020 to present layout, they hated his message because he is right. Yeah. The only difference between the mid 2000s layout and the modern layout of Imola is that they've cheesed all of the curbs. So like turn 1, 2, 3, you get anywhere near the curbs, you get launched into Narnia because there's yellow sausages on the inside. Same with Villeneuve. Same with Aqua Minerale. That's a fucking nightmare. The Variante Alta chicane, the one where Sonoda crashed. They raised the curbs there. Um, and that ruined it because it used to be a Yeet chicane. You used to be able to fly over the curbs, but they ruined it, so you can't do that anymore. Next up is the Indianapolis Oval, obviously hosted the Indy 500, which was part of the F1 calendar from 1950 to 1960. I mean, if we're talking about all-time Indianapolis, it has to be in the GOAT tracks for like just motorsports history. But obviously, we're not talking about that. I'll put it in C tier because it's such an outlier. Um, and I don't know. I only know the winners and stuff of the races. The only real details I know of the Indy 500s of that era was who won, who got pole position, who got fastest laps. Because I have to, because I do F1 stats stuff. Um, so I'll put it in C tier, ahead of Buenos Aires, but behind Dijon. I dislike the sports washing part of the track, but the track itself slaps and delivers. Baku, yes, I mean, yeah. People overlook Baku because people don't really know Azerbaijan as a sports washing thing, but they have the problems with. I think it's Armenia. They have some problems with. I don't know much about that political situation or that sports washing situation, but I know it exists. That's a problem. The Indy Roval or the Indianapolis Road Course, as they like to say, the IRC. Um, I mean, the actual racing product was good. It just got involved in what was it? Three. It got involved in two controversies in three. It got involved in two controversies in its like tenure. It got involved in the team order scandal in 2002, um, Tiregate or whatever we call Indianapolis 2005. Um, and then was it part of the Alonso Hamilton war in 2007, or was there something else in 2007 that I'm forgetting? Oh, I mean, it broke Ralph Schumacher's back um, in '04, and then he crashed again in '05 at the same corner. Um, but yeah, he just got involved in too much controversy to really get off the ground in F1. It could have got off the ground if it hadn't been embroiled in controversy. Um, it's actually a pretty good circuit, but it doesn't really prove that with its track record in Formula One. Interlagos is the next circuit, but it's the original layout of Interlagos. Now, people who don't know the old layout of Interlagos, we're looking at that thinking, what the fuck? It's just loads of corners slapdash together, and it's like a massively long circuit. Like back in the day, it was like a 2 minute 30 lap. Um, it was like 7 miles long or something. We got a Portuguese on the podium in 2005, though. Yeah, Tiago Monteiro. It was he the first podium finisher from Portugal? Because you had people like Cabral, that Cabral guy in the 50s. You had 70s, you had no one. 80s, you had no one. You had Pedro Chavez in the 90s, along with Pedro Lamy. Um, who am I thinking of? Pedro Lamy, and then you had Monte. I don't think there was any other Portuguese drivers. I think I've missed someone. Um, and you haven't had a Portuguese driver since Montero. At least not in F1. You nearly had Antonio Felix da Costa, but then he went to Formula E. Um, but yeah, anyway, Interlagos. But I've driven that this layout. Although it's a lot of turns, it is nice to drive. It's pretty good, I'd say. Better than Avis, but not as good as the Bahrain outer layout. And the modern Interlagos is a goat tier track. It just is. I wouldn't say it's as good as Sherrard, but it is a goat tier track. Istanbul. I have a Turkish friend who thinks that Istanbul is the second coming of Christ of F1 circuits. Is FP1 on right now? Because I've just seen Twitter. I've just seen a Twitter notification. Not that I really go on Twitter. I just get the notifications when some random Lewis or Max fan goes, "The other driver is stupid," and it's really funny. I just look at it and I just giggle. But Istanbul, Istanbul. Obviously, it is a good circuit, but people are acting like it's the second coming of Christ and it should be on the modern F1 calendar. They need to go away because it's it's outgrown modern F. Or, sorry, F1 cars have out modern F1 cars have outgrown Istanbul. It was designed for those mid 2000s to early 2010s cars where they were nimble, agile, a bit slower. And it's like, oh, wow. Because I just saw, it's because FP1 is next week. Because I just saw, I just saw a Twitter notification saying Ricardo goes P1. I was confused about that. I'll have a look at what that is later. But Massa domination on it though. I mean, yes, that Massa did dominate on it when he was before he got his spring to the head. Um, but it doesn't work for modern F1, but it did work for old school. Um, I'll put it in B tier, ahead of Interlagos, ahead of Bahrain Alta, ahead of Indy, but below Albert Park. That's fair, I think. Then you've got Yacaparagua, or Yacarapagua, sorry, not Yacaparagua, Yacarepagua. Um, Also known as the Autodromo Internacional Nelson Piquet. Um, I mean, it got demolished to the Ricky P1 was FP1 was at Jeddah. Oh, that's just a really late notification. Then it's giving me my notifications a week fucking late. Um, but yeah, it was demolished for the Rio Olympics. Um, the Yacaparagua circuit was. I've driven this. I tried to recreate Elio De Angelis's pole lap around here in 1985, 1984. No, it was either 1983, 84, or 85, which pretty much covers Elio's competitive season. I think it was 84 actually that he got pole in Yacarapagua, but it's a good circuit. Um, if Nelson Piquet was a more likable person than he actually was, I think this could have definitely stayed on the up and calendar. Because the reason why they went to Jacaparagua instead of Interlagos was one, because Interlagos needed updating, and two, because Nelson Piquet was from Rio, which is where the circuit is. And then when Senna came up in the late 80s, they moved away from Yacarapagua because Piquet was a more unpopular driver. Because they wanted to move to wherever Senna fans were rather than where the Piquet fans were. So this circuit could have stayed on the calendar and become what is the Brazilian Grand Prix now if Nelson Piquet wasn't such a racist, annoying, homophobic, horrible piece of shit. Um, but it's better than the old Interlagos, better than Bahrain, better than Indy, Annapolis, better than Istanbul, I would say, and worse than Albert Park. Nelson Piquet is a Tory. I think that's. I mean, obviously, I don't think he's that invested in UK politics, but that works. Harama in the original layout of Harama. I don't really know what the difference is between the. Oh no, I do know what the difference is. They changed this little hairpin. That's the difference. Oh boy, I wonder what PK thought why Hamilton lost the 2021 season. Obviously, he said about the 2016 loss that he thought he was gay or something like that, and that's the reason why he lost the 2016 championship, which is weird and stupid. Um, he probably thought he was transgender for that one or something stupid like that. But yeah, Jarama or Harama, Jarama, because British people don't know how to pronounce anything that isn't English, does my tits in. Um, but yeah, Jarama. I keep saying fucking. I did fucking Spanish A level. I should just pronounce stuff like it's Spanish. It's not as good as Imola. It's not as good as Fuji. I mean, it had Gilles Villeneuve get his big win there, and he had no, he didn't have Jackie Stewart win by 2 laps. That was Monaco. That was a different circuit in the same country of the same era. But it wasn't really a good circuit, Jarama or Harama. It didn't really produce good overtaking. Obviously, that's why Gilles Villeneuve was able to hold 5 cars behind. It wasn't all driver talent. It was because Harama was a difficult circuit to overtake on. Um, Jeddah. I mean, we were talking about sports washing earlier on. Jeddah is the definition of sports washing. Obviously, Saudi Arabia is it's probably the worst of all the despotic uh, Middle Eastern, what's it called, circuits. Jeddah is a good street circuit. Shame it won't be around. See, the problem is it's not a street circuit. The official definition of Jeddah as a circuit is a quote unquote purpose built street circuit. You can't have a purpose-built street circuit. A street circuit is a street circuit, or it's a purpose-built permanent facility. They make a circuit that's like a street circuit, completely. There's no actual real road. There's no actual real roads around the actual circuit. It's completely shut off to the public, but they call it a street circuit. I don't get that. It's still a good circuit. It produces good drama, but it's not a good circuit to drive. Um, I mean, I do think that someone is going to die there at some point, and they're going to have to shut it down, unless obviously they're going to Kidia in a couple of years. But we saw what happened with Schumacher, and he had to set out of a race because they literally put concrete walls on the inside rather than actually trying to think of safety. It's a pretty good circuit. I'll put it maybe behind Bahrain ahead of Interlagos. But yeah, then we got Jerez. Obviously, Spain had a break from F1 after 5 years when Harama came off the calendar. And then Jerez filled that void in '86. It did. It was a got it. It was on the F1 2013 game. It was one of the classic circuits. Very good on that game because they actually used this layout, the original '86 to '90 layout, which is very fast and flowing. I like it. I think it's up in B tier at least. Probably up where Kota is, just above Kota, and maybe Hockenheim as well. Jeddah also gave Ollie Behrman his debut. They did give Ollie Behrman his debut. But that wasn't the circuit itself. It's not like I said, "Oh, Ollie, you can have an extra Ferrari to join." Um, but in 1994 and '97, they ruined it because they had a stupid. Look at that chicane. It's stupid. You've turned a nice little fast section into slow and horrible. It's below Harama, below Indianapolis. I might even put it into the D tier because of how awful that chicane is. D tier seems to be filled with just boring circuits or circuits that are good but have shit features. Kind of interested to see what you think about the Las Vegas Grand Prix. We'll get to that in a bit. Um, Kyle Army, the original layout of Kyle Army, obviously was in F1 at uh, the time where they were under apartheid, which is obviously, as you all know, what I would say, it's not ideal. Is a similar-ish layout to the modern layout. You can see where the modern layout gets its parts from, like especially around the Likop section, whatever you call it. I don't know how to, because Afrikaans looks like Dutch, but I don't know if it's pronounced like Dutch. The original Kyle Army can go in okay, I guess. I don't know why the cursor's so far away from the actual circuit itself now. I'll put it above Fuji, but behind the Hungaroring. And the modern-ish Kyle Army, because that's not the same layout as we have nowadays. The first corner will tell you that. I'll put it above the Hungaroring, but behind the new Hungaroring. Kyle Army is overrated. Is overrated or isn't overrated? Yeah, I think people say, oh, it should come back to the F1 calendar because we need an African Grand Prix. We don't need an African Grand Prix. Yes, it's a world championship, but like for example, the club does the Club World Cup have a team from Europe, Asia, North America, South America, Australasia, and Africa? Because if it does, then that's my point over. But I don't think we need a race in every single country, or in every single I don't think we need a race in every single continent. Plus, Kyle Army would not produce any good overtaking, and just having a circuit based on where it is on the calendar is stupid. Next up is Las Vegas. See, Las Vegas, I thought that it would be either really, really good or really, really shit. And it was somehow a mix of both. Because the organisation and the way they handled the event was complete and utter dog shit. They had the celebrities, and they had that. Was he a WWE announcer going, Sergio Perez? And you just go, you just look like a massive gimp. Fuck off. It's F1, not WWE. There isn't a team from Cornwall in the Club World Cup, so you're not wrong. You have funny because Cornish people think that they deserve a separate country, though. the parts of England. Yeah, because the guy who runs the TI Racing YouTube account is from the Cornwall country. But yeah, anyway, back to Vegas. Um, the organization was shit, but the race was actually quite good. The race was quite good. I didn't want it to be good because I wanted to be able to bash on in Vegas because at the time I was because I do a bit of a bit of article writing on the side, and I wanted to just lay into Las Vegas because it's shit, but I couldn't, which is really annoying. UFC announcer at Vegas. Yeah, that's why I don't follow boxing or fighting sports because that's okay. Bruce Buffer. Yeah, I recognise that name. He sounds like a darts player though. I overslept and was mega sad because Williams fucks up big time, but it's unique-ish, minus the BS around the track with the local population and shit. Oh yeah, because they put up those screens so that no one could watch because they wanted to pay people to pay 5 million, million, billion pounds for a ticket. Probably charges about 50 mil as well. Yeah, I think it is like thousands for a grandstand ticket because Americans, as much as Americans are good at marketing, they say like Europeans they don't know how to market, my guy. But then they market for upmarket prices, but no one wants to go there if they're not American. And thinking, um, they will milk anything for money. That's the annoying thing about like American corporations. Um, I'll put it in seated because it's nowhere near as good as Catalonia. It's better than Detroit. There we go. Vegas was definitely better than expected. It was better than expected. I wanted to lay into it and it to be the second coming of Caesar's Palace, but it wasn't, so I couldn't. Then Le Mans at Bugatti, obviously in 1967, they used the Bugatti layout of Le Mans, which is the little short circuit that's on the main straight and it goes through a couple of sections and it's just shit, really, if I'm being honest. The big example of why the circuit is shit, there was a game that came out. I don't know which console it was on, but I think it came out around the time I was born, called Grand Prix Legends, and it detailed or it was like basically like a mod for the 1967 season, which is when this circuit was on the calendar. And that game, bear in mind it's an entire official licensed game, didn't have this circuit on because of how bad it was. They didn't want to have people have to drive this circuit. Um, I wouldn't call it. Would I call it awful? No, I'll just call it Damon Hill tier. It's right at the bottom of Damon Hill tier. Um, then we've got Long Beach. Obviously, Long Beach didn't know what it wanted to be for the entire course of its F1 career. Oh boy, can't wait to rate the 5 billion Monaco GP iterations. Yeah, it's the same with Monza and one other circuit I'm thinking of, Silverstone and Spa. Yeah, there's a couple of those. Luckily, I know my history, so I can remember. So yeah, I've driven at all of these different iterations of Long Beach because I drove the 1976 to 81 layout because I wanted to see what the two hairpins were like. I drove the 1982 layout because I was trying to beat Andrea Di Cesaro's pole time because I was like, Andrea Di Cesaro's got a pole position. It was shocking. And then look at this abomination that is a 1983 layout. You've got a tight right-hander into a tight left-hander into a hairpin into a tight right-hander into a tight left-hander into a tight right-hander down a straight into a tight right-hander into a tight left-hander. It's just so many slow corners. Long Beach in modern day IndyCar is is exciting and it's got some pizzazz and it's got some amazingness, but in F1 it never really took off. I think this layout could probably go in B tier with maybe Avis. This layout can go slightly higher, but the 1983 layout is an abomination to human society. Um, that should be treated as such. Then LaSalle. See again, LaSalle is a Middle Eastern circuit that I want to hate, but I can't because it's produced two decent-ish races. Um, it's fast, it's flowing. Obviously, it's a bike circuit. At least it's meant to be a bike circuit. It's hosted MotoGP since its opening in 2004. But F1 went there because money. Because as I said, the answer to all of your questions is money. I think Southpaw Racer did an amazing video. He did a super serious track guide on LaSalle, and he just took the piss out of it. He is very good. Long Beach, be like go 3 turns, venture through 7 war zones, be trafficked by the cartel 2 times, and that's only half a lap. Well, because it's in which is in California, California, Long Beach. It is, yeah, because that's where Snoop Dogg's from. That sounds about right. Go to a gay pride parade, um, and then yeah, because California is supposed to be one of the most liberal states. Because liberal is a word that's thrown around to basically mean anything that means you don't support racism. Um, LaSalle, it's been pretty good. It's better than Long Beach, at least for F1. If it was in like if it was including all motorsports, I wouldn't put Long Beach even in B tier. It'd be up near the top. Well, to be fair, Silverstone wasn't RAF base. That's a very good point. Yeah, obviously RAF Silverstone during the war. Yeah. Then 1991 Magny Core. The only difference between this and I think the other circuit is the fact that after Adelaide Hairpin, they have an abominous chicane, which is awful, which means it's in Damon Hill tier. Um, Ahead of Le Mans, but behind Buenos Aires. Um, See, certain fan or certain ages of fans of F1 will say like Magny Corroys should have come back to F1 because it's amazing and all the fast corners, but it produced really bad races. It was good to one. It was good over 1 lap, but it didn't produce good overtaking. Well, to be fair, it was meant to be on that Long Beach track of California itself. Magny-Cours was a boring track. Paul Ricard was slightly better. That's the thing. Magny-Cours, over 1 lap, it's amazing. It is amazing. It's super fast, super challenging, super amazing over 1 lap. But because of that, it's not good over a race distance. The only good race I remember there was 99. When was it Johnny Herbert won? Or was it Frentzen? He might have been Frentzen. It's also French, says Remy. That's a good point. I don't really. I'm a neutral when it comes to F1 driver and driver supporting, but I don't like Teo Pourchaire or Teo Pourchaire or Victor Martins because they took out Ollie Behrman multiple times during the F2 season last year, because it's clear hatred towards him. But yeah, Magny Core, I'll put it in B tier for pure driving experience. But if it was but if it wasn't, if it didn't have that, it'd be down in D tier. To be honest, the 2003 to 2008 layout. That's when we got rid of the tricky chicane on entry and made it in the last corner, which is arguably worse. Where have I put the other layout? Where did I put the other Magny Core layout? Oh, there. I'll put that slightly better. Mexico City, the original layout. This is where Ricardo Rodriguez died. I thought with Prost though, true Chad. Yeah, he's the third best F1 driver of all time for me, the fourth best Grand Prix driver of all time. Uh, yeah, the original Mexico City layout, a lot more S's, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 corners in the S's section at Mexico. That's an S's section. And then they had the Paraltada. Okay, I guess, because I mean, it hosted the season finale in '64, um, which was a freeway title fight. Monaco has had many iterations where changes were major, right? In brackets, clueless. Some of them were major, but others weren't. I'll explain to you those later on. Mexico City, though, the original layout can go around where Catalonia is. Um, the 1986 to 92 layout, they changed Turn 1. They changed. What else did they change? Let me just have a look at the other layout. They changed his hairpin here. And they kept the Paraltada, which is obviously good. High altitude track though Mexico. It is a high altitude track. It's one of if not the highest altitude track in F1 history. This layout is better, but only marginally. The modern Mexico layout, I don't like it because it doesn't produce good racing. Is every time I turn into we haven't had a good race at Mexico City since it came back onto the calendar because it's so high downforce and there's no because of the thinness of the air, you don't get any slipstream, which just means it's so bad to overtake at. Latest Mexico layout is exciting to watch. Which races have you been watching? Also, they got rid of the Paraltada, which, although I understand for safety reasons, is the biggest crime in human history. Just put a chicane before it, like Formula E did. Um, but yeah, Mexico's. I don't mind the circuit itself. It's nice to drive because every single corner seems to flow into one another, but it's not exciting to watch. I'll put it in the bottom of C tier. Um, then we have Miami. This is going straight in Damon Hill tier. Uh, it can go along with Dijon and thingy. 2023 Mexico almost resulted in a cartel hit on Leclerc. I mean, yeah. I mean, but actually, yeah. I'll take it. I said that there was no excitement ever at this racetrack. I'll take that back. 2023 showed a bit of excitement at the start. Well done. You got a medal. Right, now we're on to Monaco. Remy said that he wanted to see all these different layouts. I'll explain to you all the different layouts. So, Monaco in 1950. Um, right, so this is obviously you go Saint-Devote, Beaurivage, Massenet, Mirabeau. No, sorry, Massenet, Casino Square, Mirabeau, Hairpin, Portier, Tunnel, Flick Chicane, because it was a Flick Chicane back then rather than a normal one. And then to back, and then you go straight to the Gasworks Hairpin with no swimming pool section. This race, the 1950 race, was obviously the second ever F1 race, won by Honorable Fangio. And there's a bit of a quirk about this race that not many people know, because obviously the track is right next to the Mediterranean Sea. That's why there's loads of boats in the port. But when they were on the first lap of this race, a wave from the Mediterranean Sea crashed onto the circuit and and flooded the circuit. And Fangio saw this happening. None of the other drivers saw it, and they all slid off, and he just went through them all. I'm not a Monaco hater. I fuck with it. Just memeing a bit, yeah. But I'm not saying it's wrong to say there's five because it's true that there are a lot of layouts. That's not a hateful thing to say. It's when people say, "Oh, Monaco's never had a good race," which is just factually wrong. That's when I start telling them they're retards because they are. But the original layout of Monaco was very good. I'll put it on a similar level to Avis. They changed it in 55 because obviously the main straight was in the 1950 layout down to Sandoval, which is where it is today. But back in the day, well, they changed it from Sandoval to the straight being going into the Gasworks hairpin. So the hairpin was the first corner rather than Sandoval. That's literally the only change they made, I think. So that's obviously worse because of history. Um, oh fuck! I accidentally moved Catalonia by accident. Oh for fuck's sake! Where did I put? Oh for fuck's sake! I just accidentally moved. There we go. I'll put that there. But yeah, it's actually funny because obviously people say Monaco's only on the F1 calendar now because of its history. The only reason the Monaco Grand Prix even exists is because of a similar reason. Because the Monaco Grand Prix wanted to get on the Grand Prix racing calendar in the 1930s or in the 1920s, but because there was no history of Monaco in racing, they said no, you can't have a Grand Prix unless you get unless you no, what it was, no. They wanted to have the Monte Carlo rally in the 1920s, but they said because you have no history, we're not going to let you onto the calendar. So they created the Monaco Grand Prix for Grand Prix cars to get the Monte Carlo rally up and running. So the Monaco Grand Prix, which is now only on the calendar because of its history, got the Monte Carlo rally onto the rally calendar because it had no history, which is really interesting for me. Um, then the Monaco 63 to 67 layout. What did they change here? They may have. Well, first of all, they changed it back to Sandoval being the first corner. And I think they might have made the chicane tighter or something like that. I don't actually know what the difference is between those circuits. They might have made tracks wider or the track a bit wider. 68 to 71, they might have made the tunnel longer there because I can't see any major differences. That can go. Again, these are all going to go in about the same place. I'm not going to put them all in different places and critically rate them all because there's just too many to critically rate of all the different Monaco layouts. Then in 72, 72 was the last year they didn't have the swimming pool section in. 72 was the last year. That was obviously when Jean-Pierre Beltoise won in the wet and got his only ever Grand Prix win in the wet. 73 was when they brought in the swimming pool section, which is obviously I think that's better. Um, I'll put that more in A tier, up with your Imolas and your Hockenheims. Monaco's the Williams of F1 tracks. You always root with it. It has a rich history, and you also get to see it because it's Monaco. But I don't really know Williams fucking over Leclerc. I don't remember Williams fucking over Leclerc though, unlike Monaco. Um, yeah, I mean, Monaco doesn't fuck over Leclerc. Leclerc, I mean, it's not the circuit itself. He crashed out in 2019, because he made a mistake or something in qualifying, and then tried to kamikaze his way to the front, and it didn't work. 2021, the engine failed on him, which isn't Monaco's fault. 2022, strategy failed him, which isn't Monaco's fault. 2023, I can't remember what happened in 2023, but yeah. Then we go to 1975 layout. I'm not sure what the change is there, so I'm going to put it in the same. Someone in the comments is going to tell me exactly what all of the changes are. I know if I post this video afterwards. Um, then the 76 to 85 layout. I don't know what they changed there. But I know what the next change is. Um, then it's yeah. This is when they introduced the modern Nouvelle chicane, because initially it was just a flick left and a flick right. Now it's a proper chicane, and that's where it goes into goat tier, in my opinion. Um, Also, but I just realised I forgot to mention that the reason a lot of those changes were made was because there was like, for example, I think it was in the late 60s they had going up to the back. There was like a bank, not a banking, but a ramp going into the back, and I think they got rid of that at some point. That would have been one of the changes. It's just you can't see it on a track map. 1997 to 2002. I'm not sure what the change would have been then. Was that the tightening of Rascasse? It might have been the tightening of Rascasse. No, it wasn't the tightening of Rascasse. That's the thing. I don't know all the individual. I don't know all of the individual changes like the back of my hand, but I know the big changes. It also doesn't help when my laptop is falling to pieces because it doesn't. It's not used to running for this long. This long. Leclerc Kamikaze versus the George Russell Jihad. Yeah. Osama bin Russell, as rocket powered Mohawk likes to say. 2003 to 2014. That was when they moved the barrier at turn one, or they made turn one tighter. And I think that's also where they finally made Rascasse a little bit tighter. So it wasn't like three corners, it was like one. Um, I think they finally started to realise that the less complicated they make the corners, the more overtaking you get. Then the 2015 layout was obviously where they opened up the entry of the swimming pool chicane. When they made it a little bit faster, and Verstappen crashed there quite a few times in 2016. Then we moved to Monsanto. Monsanto obviously hosted the Portuguese Grand Prix literally once. Um, I don't remember anything about this circuit. I'll be honest. It's a D tier track because I don't remember anything about it. I don't know who won there. It might have been Jack Brabham or Bruce McLaren or something, but I don't really care. Um, he can go ahead of East London, but behind the original 1980 Imola. Then Monjuic Park. Um, Obviously, most famous for the disaster of 1975. Modern iterations of Monaco F tier, straight robbery in 2023 of Alonso. I am coping. Verstappen is literally traumatized to goat status. Yeah. Monjuic Park is known for the 1975 disaster where the barriers and stuff weren't held together because the circuit organisers literally couldn't be bothered to put the barriers together, so the teams had to do it themselves. And then on race day, a driver crashed, surprisingly, and then took out four people with him, killed four people because he went over the top of the improperly installed barrier that, ironically, his team worked on earlier on in the weekend. I've driven the circuit in F1 VB Challenge, so I know how it goes. It's a nice circuit to drive, obviously, if you've not got the barriers sticking out on you. I'll put it in probably B tier, up with Long Beach and Magny-Cours. Montreal. Uh, Montreal. Oh, this is a tough one. Montreal. Obviously, we've got about 5,000 different layouts here. The 1978 layout was the first layout, and it's got, I can count, two more chicanes than the current layout. The FIA would never do that. Oh, they would. I don't think they'd do improperly installed barriers because they do have a safety boner, which I think is fair. Um, but yeah, moving on to Montreal. This is obviously where Gilles Villeneuve won his first F1 race here in 1978. Um, they only hosted one race, and I haven't seen this layout of the circuit in action, so I'm just going to go C tier, just bog standard C tier. 1979, they move a couple of chicanes, or at least remove some of them, and then I made them faster, which is good. Faster chicanes are good. Um, this was the layout where Riccardo Paletti died in 1982. I'm trying to think of any other big moments that happened. I can't think of any other big moments. I don't even remember the Canadian Grand Prix being on the calendar in some of these years. That's how forgettable it is. PK won his last couple of races in Brabham, I think, at Canada in '84 or '85, I think, or was that Detroit? I'm not sure. Um, I'm a bit tired. How am I tired? It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I've forgotten where I put the other calendar. Modern Montreal is I mean, let's just get through all the other iterations first. I'm just gonna put all the pretty much the older iterations in C tier because they have way too many chicanes to actually be good, especially in modern day racing. I mean, I don't really remember anything from the early iterations. 1991 to 93, that was where PK won his last ever F1 race, and he said that he nearly came when he saw that Nigel Mansell was slowing down and had a installed. Um, Then 94. Oh yeah, 94 was when they put the safety chicane in on the back straight, which I don't like. I'm gonna put that in F tier. 96 to 2001. That's when they start getting better, and that's where the Wall of Champions comes into play on this layout. So I'll put this higher up in A tier. Um, Up with Brands Hatch. Doesn't help that my computer is literally combusting and lagging all over the place. Um, Now the modern layout. See, Remy said put it in S tier, but I wouldn't put it in S tier. I don't think it's on the same level as Monaco, Sherrod, and Interlagos. Um, I'm gonna put it up with Hockenheim and and one of the older layouts of Monaco. Mont Tremblant. Obviously, is a circuit that's now owned by Lawrence Stroll in Canada. I assume he's in the Quebecois as part of Canada. Um, it looks like a nice circuit to drive, especially in the 70s cars, which is where, or the late 60s, early 70s cars. Um, mm, this looks like a good going B tier to me. A solid B tier ahead of Avis. I'm just Kubica pill. Yeah. I have a couple of Polish friends who think that Kubica was the second coming of Christ. I mean, he was really good. He was championship potential, to be fair. Then you've got Monza, right? Monza 1950 to 1954. How many layouts do we have of this circuit? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we have so yeah, the 1950 to 1954 layout. There was Parabolica was two corners is the main difference. The where the Lesmo chicanes are now, um, sorry, no, where the second chicane is now, it's just a tight left-hander. The two right-handers I think were made out of bricks. I think Parabolica was genuinely like, how they call Indianapolis the Brickyard because it used to be made of bricks. I think the last two corners were bricks, but still, it's nonetheless a great layout. Simple but effective. Then they used the oval for a little bit because basically what they did was they found that Ferrari always made the fastest cars in a straight line. They never usually made the fastest cars in the corner, but they always usually made the fastest cars in a straight line. So any year where Ferrari was struggling because they didn't make a fast car in the corners, um, they would basically say, "Oh, we're using the oval by the way, so we can get a lot of extra straight line speed and win the race." I'm a Bosnian and I love Kubica because he is a Slavic driver and was good, unlike some other Slavic drivers. I'm trying. Are there any? Obviously, there aren't any people from like Bosnia. There are a couple of Russian Eastern European drivers. There was Jolt Baumgartner, who was from Hungary. I know that's not. Is that He's not Slavic, I don't think. But and I got other. There was Tomáš Enger, who is Czech. I'm trying to think of other drivers from that region. That's about it. That's all I can think of. Um, I mean, Mario Andretti was born in modern day, I think it was Czechoslovakia or Yugoslavia or something like that. So you could have a claim to fame there, or Croatia, I think. But yeah, Monza, this layout did kill Wolfgang von Trips, which is a bit of a problem. But overall, I do like the oval layout. Nikita Sirotkin and co. Oh, yeah, because you have the Russian guys as well. Obviously, it's on the European side. Um, this layout of Monza can go in S tier, below Monaco, because it did kill people. But Dino Boganovic's Swede with Bosnian parents in F3. Oh yeah, I know him because he's a massive. He's one of Ollie Behrman's friends. Andretti was born in modern day Croatia. Yeah, good. That's good knowledge from me. Um, Obviously emigrated to America and then claimed American citizenship. I'm not sure how you feel about that one, but then the no chicanes, no oval layout of Monza produced a lot of slipstream battles, which makes it very legendary because it's basically the Daytona 500 of Formula One in terms of slipstream battles. Um, then they introduced the first chicane. I think it was on the back straight. Sorry, on the main straight, not the back straight. Which is a bit mid. I can't lie. Put it in A tier instead. Um, we still have quite a few to go. Then they introduced a different chicane. I think it was on the back straight, and I think this is where did they introduce? They didn't introduce Ascari just yet. I don't think. Let me have a look. No, they did introduce Ascari. Yeah. So this is when Monza's in its transitional phase, and it didn't look that good because it was just transitioning. Bill Vukovic, 50s, also had Slavic, but raced under an American flag. Oh yeah, he won two Indy 500s and then died in the 55 race. He died in the 1955 race. Um, 76 to 93. I assume that is the. Is that one where they have. Yeah, they have two front stretch chicanes, Ascari in its modern form, and the second chicane. This probably goes up into higher A tier. The 1994 layout of Monza, they tightened up the second Lesmo, I think it was, because of lack of runoff, which isn't great. But it wasn't massacred. I don't think the layout. I'll put it in like C tier. I am ranking every single Monza. It's sending me insane because I don't fully know all the different layouts. 95 to 99, I think they reopen up Lesmo and the rest of the circuit is the same. It's like similar to the modern circuit, except for the first chicane or chicanes. This is what I want to fucking do because I'm about to fall asleep. Um, And then the modern layout is up right near the top. Oh, I didn't manage to move it. Whoopsie. It's not as good as Sherrod, but it's better than Interlagos. And there's really that many tracks and drivers. It's tracks as well as individual layouts. There's been 76, I think, F1 tracks in history, but there's been so many different layouts, more than 76. Um, and drivers. I did a driver ranking tier list the other week, and he had like it was like 2 hours long. Not sure how long this has been, but yeah, we move on to Mosport. Mosport, I know from the NASCAR Heat games. Um, and I do like it to drive in those cars, and they are a similar pace to what the 70s F1 cars were, even if they aren't the same kind of handling characteristics. That will probably go in B tier, around the level of Jeddah or Bahrain. Mugello obviously hosted one race in 2020 for the COVID pandemic. It was, I mean, it was an eventful race. We obviously saw the qualifying bit with Hamilton going flat through the, what was it called, Arabiata or something like that. Whereas George Russell was in the gravel trying to do the same thing by going flat. We saw the safety car pile up, which, yeah, wasn't great. And then I've just lost the ability to speak. And then, yeah, I'll put it in probably B tier, up with these lot, around where Magny-Cours is. Then New Delhi, India. Um, this was an underrated circuit. Obviously, only lasted 3 years on the calendar or 3 seasons. Vettel won there every single time. Vettel led every single lap there. Vettel got every single pole position there. Vettel got everything there. But overall, it was a really good circuit. New Delhi is now remembered mostly because of Vettel and Red Bull, to be honest, by most fans that know. Or most fans now. Yeah, but that's because he did lead every single lap here, which is a crazy stat. But it is still a really good circuit. B tier, definitely. Um, Up with the likes of Mont Tremblant. Where's Interlagos, by the way, if anyone knows? The modern layout of Interlagos is in GOAT tier. The old layout of Interlagos is in B tier. Then we go to Nivelle Ballers. Um, Obviously hosted the Belgian Grand Prix in 72 and 74 because they were trying to scramble for alternatives after Spa fell off the calendar at the end of 1970 because of safety concerns. Um, um, I accidentally hit a wire that was dangling next to me. But yeah, it's a Damon Hill tier circuit, Nivelle Borders. It's boring as hell. It's like a Le Mans Bugatti. I mean, there's only three different iterations of the Nordschleifer. I don't know the difference between a lot of them. They all have the panhandle, which is different to the modern circuit. Um, I mean, I think it belongs up in A tier rather than S tier. Actually, does it belong up in S? It might belong up in S tier. I might decide when I. Oh yeah, I'm gonna put it up in S tier. Better than the older layouts of Monza, but not as good as Monaco, I don't think. Should we request James May's ratings for the Nurburgring? Yeah, well, he says for like road cars. He says he said that they should never use the Nurburgring for testing road cars, which is completely fair because it ruins the ride of them. Which is also completely fair. But Um, in F1, it was a really good circuit. Oh, only about 50 circuits to go. Um, the first ever version of the Nürburgring GP circuit. Turn one's different to modern day, and turn two for that matter. The Vidal chicane is different as well. This goes into again, it's like Monza where and Spa, where the modernized and Hockenheim, where the modernized version of a circuit after it got shortened down due to safety requirements is just as good, or if not better, than the original layout that it replaced, which is good. Because, like for example, Charade nowadays is just like a 2 mile little short shitty circuit, whereas this version of a Nurburgring isn't. It's actually really good. Up in the top of B tier. Itchy nose. And the same with this one, I'd say. And then I think after 2001, they introduced what is a tighter section to increase overtaking, which I think was a good idea. I'll put this up in great circuits because it did produce better overtaking. It worked. Fangio for the win. Yeah, Fangio did get a good win around Nordschleifer in 57. Paul Ricard. This is the original layout of a circuit that didn't have the Mistral chicane. The last sector was slightly different, and that's about it. Um, it's actually a good circuit, but only pretty good. It's nothing special. About as good as Mosport from that era. Then, after Elio De Angelis' death in the earlier part of 1986, they changed it to just a short circuit. Which, although it wasn't a terrible circuit in its own right, it wasn't as good as the other circuit. It was okay, I guess. It produced a good race in 1990. The car that is in my profile picture, the Leighton House, got famous because of that 1990 French race. So I guess thank the circuit for that. I guess it's up in C tier. Then Pedralbes hosted the Spanish Grand Prix in 51 and 54. Then got taken off the provisional 55 calendar because of a Le Mans disaster. Um, yeah, I mean, the drivers said the drivers at the time said it was fast and entertaining and different because it was wide and stuff. But yeah, it is just a bit average. There's not really much that ever happened there. I mean, Ascari got a pole position in Lancia, and Fangio won, I think, once or twice, or Gonzalez might have won as well. But it wasn't really that special, if I'm being honest. Then we have Pescara, which is the longest circuit in F1 history, 25 kilometers. Under modern day rules, you'd only do 12 laps around here before the race finished. Um, and yeah, it was like a 9 minute lap in period cars in cars of the time. Obviously, two 5 kilometer long straights broken. I mean, the last one of the straights was broken up by a chicane they brought in. I think the chicane they brought in on one of the back straights was the first ever safety chicane built into a racing circuit. It was brought in the 1930s, and they were thinking about safety. Um, but yeah, it is pretty good, I'd say. It's up there because it's unique. It's one of the most unique circuits. It's up with Avis, really, in uniqueness. Bro is really ranking all of the tracks. I am. You see, Phoenix, I've driven, and it was really horrible to drive an F1 VB challenge. But I think I think that was more of a simulator than anything. I mean, the 1990 version saw John Lacey surprise everyone, but I suppose apart from that, there wasn't really any good moments. Apart from that whole grid being jumbled up that year, it was okay, I guess, around about the um, Harama period. Um, and this layout looks terrible. Like the tighter section, it looks Damon Hill tier. Um, around about where East London is. Um, Portimao. GG's on getting the 1K though. Thank you. Sochi looking on the third row. I despise that track. Mm, it's good to drive, but it's boring to race on. Portimao. Portimao is the same as Phoenix in a way. No, sorry, in the same as what circuit was I thinking of? Sochi, where it's good to drive, but it's not good to race on. It's produced one like 5 laps of a good race in 2020 and a boring race in 2021, and then everyone said, "Oh, it needs to stay on the calendar forever." No, it doesn't. It's okay. Then Porto. This was the race where Sterling Moss won by 5 minutes. Got the longest winning margin in F1 history. Um, but other than that, it's like Monsanto. Like, who cares? Portugal, for such a small country in terms of F1, like history and folklore, has a lot of F1 circuits. It has 4 F1 circuits, despite its kind of historical input. Um, the original layout of Rem was a bit shit, I won't lie, because it doesn't have the full layout. Um, but then the other layouts I can put in pretty good. Same with that one. The Portimao was a bit overhyped. It was overhyped. Um, Verstappen ready to break that record too at this point. I can't think of what record you're thinking of because I forgot what I said about records. More tracks than drivers. There are now more tracks than drivers on the F1 calendar. That's mental. Riverside. Riverside was a really good circuit back in. Dan Gurney said it was one of his favourites back in the 60s. It only hosted one race in 1960. But I'll put it in B tier up with LaSalle and Avis. The longest winning margin. Verstappen, he won't beat that unless everyone retires. Like the gaps in modern F1 are so short compared to back in the day that it won't happen. Um, Rouen, the 1952 layout. That's just modern Rouen with the head cut off, really, which is why it's in D tier. Then the actual proper layout is up in B tier. Um, again, Sebring, more tracks than drivers was in reference to Portugal. I mean, more tracks than successful drivers, yes, but I think Portugal it had a lot of drivers in the 50s, or a few drivers in the 50s, which would bolster up to about maybe 5 or 6. Um, Sebring, obviously is known in endurance racing more than F1, but it hosted the Grand Prix 1959, which Bruce McLaren won and became the youngest race winner in a Formula One Grand Prix. Um, obviously, Troy won a race when he was younger, but that wasn't a Grand Prix because that's in the Indy 500 and Indy 500s aren't Grand Prix. Um, I mean, it was okay, I guess, for F1 purposes. So don't murder me in the comments for saying that it's an okay circuit because it is obviously legendary if it's a endurance racing thing. Sepang, great circuit. Up in A tier, about where Brands Hatch is. Then Shanghai. Oh, Shanghai is basically Sepang's demented younger brother, is what I always say. It has everything that Sepang has, just a bit shitter, which is why it'll be in the tier below. Obviously, Sepang is A tier, Shanghai will be in B tier. In fact, it doesn't even belong in B tier, probably in C tier, around where Paul Ricard is. Or the old Paul Ricard is. Um, then Silverstone, a lot of layouts here. I mean, the original layout, they're basically the same for the first few years up until 73. I know it says they're different, but I think it's just starting positions and pit lane positions and stuff. So the actual circuits themselves didn't change much. Um, the original, they are maybe not goat tier, but they are up at the top of A tier. Um, yeah, so oh boy, ranking on airbase now. Yeah, oh, I just lost one of the layouts. I have. Brilliant. Where's the Silverstone layout that I've lost? I'm looking for it. Where is it? There it is. Then the 53 to 73, the 750 to 73 layout is one that most people remember as the old layout of Silverstone because it's often immortalized in a lot of games. Like Assetto Corsa has it. I think Project Cars 2 has it. Oh no, Project Cars 2 has a 75 layout, which we'll get onto in a minute, because that has a chicane at Woodcut that I hate, and it completely ruins the momentum of the lap. I know it was brought in for safety because Jody Scheckter decided to be a terrorist in 1973. However, that doesn't really sit well with me. Then they had the chicane before Woodcut rather than in Woodcut, um, which was about the same sort of level. Then we start to get into the modern layout of Silverstone, which will go in S tier. A lot of these will. Better than the Nürburgring. Not as good as Monaco, though, in my opinion. The 1994 layout was a bit worse because it's 1994, and all the 1994 layouts pretty much have a caveat with them. Uh, there they are. I've just gone straight past all the tracks. 1996 can go back in goat tier. After I've done this, I'm gonna get. I haven't even had breakfast yet. I've just realised I literally woke up, hopped on my laptop to get the stream ready, and didn't have any breakfast. For every Ayrton Senna, there is a Gerhard Berger. Every Max Verstappen, has a Carlos Sainz law. I agree. I don't know what you're trying to say, but I agree. This layout is the layout that a lot of people maybe not my age, but slightly older than me grew up with. 1996 to 1997 to 2009. And that is up with Monza, Interlagos, and Sherrard for some of the best layouts ever. And then the 2010 layout. I don't mind the modern layout because obviously you sacrifice speed and challenge and excitement for overtaking. And I think they did that quite fairly. So I mean, I think it's still S tier, the modern layout. However, I'm not going to put it above the 2000 and the 2000s layout. Oh, fuck, they've gone past it again. Singapore. The 2008 layout. I'm trying to think what was the difference between 2008 and the rest of the years. I don't know the difference. I think it was a bit tighter at term one or something like that. Obviously, hosted that famously uncontroversial, race in 2008, and the circuit was good because it has a Singapore sling in it. Is pretty much the only reason it's really that good. There we go. Same with the 2009 to 2012 layout. Where did I put it? Where the fuck did I put it? Where did I put it? Where did I put it? I don't like not knowing where I put it. Oh, I put it in A tier. That's why I can't find it in B tier because it's not even there. 2013-14 was when they removed the Singapore sling and made the Anderson Bridge section tighter, which makes it worse. A lot worse. Like C tier worse. From A tier to C tier because you got rid of a Singapore sling. Got rid of the one thing that made the circuit unique, and you thought, oh, safety, but it's not safety because the cars are going 5 miles an hour through there anyway. The modern iteration does have the place where a totally uncontroversial, totally accidental crash by Nelson Piquet happened in 2008. 2010 Singapore actually good a race. Actually, it was a good race. Obviously, the only time Fernando Alonso ever got a Grand Slam because he held Vettel behind for so long. I also remember seeing, was it Kovalainen had to put the fire out in his own car with the fire extinguisher. In the 2015 to 2023 layout, that was when they was that when they tightened up the Anderson Bridge section? That might have been, which is obviously not good because it completely ruins the flow of that sort of thing. It was nice and open and wide before, now it's awkward and tight. And I say the modern layout is better because it has obviously if you're in the rain car for Kane, you don't want to know what turn 18 is at Singapore, but obviously it makes overtaking a bit better, which is what Singapore needs. Sochi, I mean, in real life, it was Damon Hill tier, but probably around about because you got the terrible layouts. It's not really a terrible layout; it's just a layout. Then Spa from 50 to 69 and 70. I think they're both pretty much the same. It's just one corner might be a little bit tighter in the 1970 layout or something like that. It's definitely a legendary circuit. Don't get me wrong. It's up there with the Nordschleife as because although it's dangerous and you'd never have it today, it's still a legendary track. I'd probably put it up with Sherrard, not above Sherrard, but with Sherrard. Same with the 1970 layout. Even though it killed people, even though it killed in fact 2 people in one race in 1960, still a great track. The modern layout as well it stands up to that legacy that was created by the original Spa, which is a hard thing to do. I'd say it's better than controversial for racing and historical and all that sort of stuff. Modern Spa is better than old Spa. 1994 can die in a hole. Damon is not in F tier just because of one corner because he can't go from S tier to F tier just because of one corner, but it can go like there. I mean, I like the older bus stop because, like, for example, the reason why they tightened up the bus stop was because they wanted to try and make it an overtaking zone. and that didn't work. It's not an overtaking zone, so they should just go back to the old bus stop. I think they introduced the proper bus stop in 2007. Yeah, 2007 to present. Or did they? No, they did introduce it in 2007. Obviously, Michael Schumacher not only won his first race, did his first Grand Prix here, but he also won his seventh championship there. He was the Spark King, along with maybe Kimi Räikkönen and Jim Clark. And modern sport, even with the the bus stop that I hate nowadays, I think even with that, it's still in S tier. It's just not as good as the other layouts. Um, Next one is Spielberg, the original layout of Spielberg. Both of them, I mean, they had the chicane of the first corner in 76 and 77 after Mark Donohue's death. But I mean, it was a really underrated circuit. I've driven it. It's super fast, super challenging, super quick. Definitely at least B tier. I'll bring that one up as well to save time. Around about where Cota and Donington are. That one a bit lower because it's got an ugly chicane. Um, the modern Spielberg again, that's another example of circuits that had to be changed due to safety that weren't completely butchered. Because now the modern Spielberg circuit is just as, if not more, respected than the original. Jim Clark, the king of Grand Slams, Spa offers many memories. It does. Suzuka, another S tier track. Let me just move it. Yeah, my laptop is proper spazzing out, I think. Oh my god. This page is having a problem. I'll quit my. Oh my god. It actually. Thank god it saved it all. Hello, says Schmalf. Rumi says big rip. It was nearly a big rip. We nearly had the worst possible scenario. Suzuka's better than the earlier layouts of Monaco, but not as good as the modern layouts. So it should be there instead. Even the more modern layouts, which tightened up 130R and made it slower. Right, now we go to TI Aida. From a good Japanese circuit to a bad Japanese circuit, TI Aida can go in proper D tier along with Sochi. Valencia, another bad circuit. The original Watkins Glen, um, um, one of the shortest circuits in F1 history. One of the simplest circuits in F1 history. They used to do like 110 laps around here every single race. So, I mean, it's all right. And then the other layout can go higher in B tier. Then this layout with the chicaning is a bit uglier, so we can go and see. I don't care about Francois Cervera. The chicane is, although it's necessary, it's just badly executed. Yas Marina is a D tier track, even nowadays. Better than Sochi, and the modern layout's a little bit better, maybe above Anderstorp, but it's still not a good circuit. Even though Silverstone was an airbase, Valencia got our first airborne operation. Yep, Mark Webber flying off the ground. There have been airborne F1 cars before then, Ralph Schumacher in Australia, but I understand what you mean with Valencia. Yeongam, which was the Korean Grand Prix, or the South Korean Grand Prix. I'm not sure if I think it classed it. Did they say it was the South Korean Grand Prix or the Korean Grand Prix? Obviously, because North Korea does still exist, even though it doesn't exist in a serious manner. Very underrated circuit. I'd put it on a similar level to Jerez or the original Spielberg because the layout itself was really nice to drive. It produced good overtaking. I don't know why they got rid of it, to be honest. Probably lack of fan attendance. So that the original Zandvoort, again, another really good, probably A tier circuit, and another circuit where um where they didn't butcher a really good they didn't butcher a really good circuit when they changed it for safety. I understand they had a couple of safety chicanes put in, but I'm not going to really rank those as lower, or I'm going to rank them as lower than the original layout, but not to the point where it's worse than individual circuits. Maybe actually, I need to sneeze. I need to do a massive sneeze. I don't need to sneeze anymore. That's really frustrating. I'll rank these below Sepang. And the modern Zandvoort layout isn't. I don't like the modern Zandvoort layout as much as the old Zandvoort layout in terms of actual driving. But um, it is still okay. It wouldn't be on the F1 calendar if it wasn't for Max Verstappen because it's not produced good enough racing. Even though 2023 was all right, that was because of weather. Zandvoort can go in B tier. Zeltweg, the worst circuit in F1 history. Just look at it. It looks like a syringe. Um, then the last circuit on this list is Zolder. I mean, in sports cars and stuff, it's quite a regular fixture on calendars. But I'll happily put it in B tier, maybe around here. And that's it. That's the entire tier list. So I'll run through so you can see all the different tracks in the different tiers slowly. But after that, I think that'll be the stream over, guys. So that's been my 1,000 subscriber special. I hope you all enjoyed it. But we only had about 5 people. We only had about 5 people concurrently in the actual stream. But thank you, everyone. I've been Nedzo, and I'll see you all later.